Welcome, everyone. My name is Carlee. I am on the partnership team here at Apex Social Group. I think something that is very, very dear and true to our heart is collaborating within the community. As much as we would love to call ourselves the experts of everything in this space, it's just not feasible and it's not possible. And so we want to collaborate with others that are the experts in different fields. And so someone that is very, very close to us and that I talk about all the time is Sanford Autism Advocacy Group. And we're really excited to collaborate on this webinar that talks about navigating neurodiversity strategies for IEPs and care at home. I think these two come with a lot of complexities, and for families, it can be overwhelming, challenging, a bottomless hole. I mean, I was an educator and I get questions all the time that I don't even have the answers to. And so it's so refreshing to have collaboration and partnerships that we can help families navigate these things. So super excited to have you here, Crystal. I'm going to have you start off with just talking about all things IEP, and I will pass it over.
Oh, thank you so much. And we really, as well, at Sanford Autism, value collaboration. It is really the reason why we are where we are, is because we've joined together with our community partners and to help more families. So thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully you can hear everything okay. So, all right. So it is a pleasure for me to be able to share about our topic today, which is navigating neurodiversity. I'm just going to specifically share about strategies related to the IEP. And then I know Carlee will pick up with supports in the home. Also want to say today is the first full official day of fall. So happy fall. We love fall at my house. Fall is when my birthday happens. It's when it cools eventually, I guess, here in Southern California. And yeah, pumpkin PSLs are abounding, all the good things. So happy fall. I'll just share briefly a little bit about myself and what brings me to this space. That's some of the things that I've done there. And I will share that first and foremost, I am a parent. I am a parent of two neurodivergent kiddos, one teenager and one almost teenager who thinks she is. So I am living in this space as a parent first, as well as my other experiences. And that's a picture of my family there. I have a sibling with developmental disabilities, and she is 60 years old. It's unbelievable. And so I've been, even as long as I can remember, navigating the space of supporting people with disabilities. I've been a speech pathologist now for over 25 years. And soon after my oldest daughter was identified as autistic, I started our company where I could more empower families who were on the same journey that I was. So that's our small little team there, and really excited to be on this journey with them. Just some of the more boring information. This material is for your use only and is not to be shared with those who have not attended, but do feel free to take pictures of slides that might be beneficial to you. Information that is shared today is not to be construed as legal or medical advice and is subject to change. My hope is that by the end of my brief little presentation that you'll understand a little bit more about the foundational principles that surround IEPs, and you'll understand some strategies that will support you in having a more positive and collaborative process. Some of the things I'll talk about are neurodiversity, first and foremost, so that we all have an operational definition. We're on the same page. We'll talk a little bit about IEP history and what that looks like now, and mostly talk about strategies for success. So neurodiversity, what does that mean? It appears to be a bit of a buzzword these days, neurodiversity, neurodivergent, some of the additional versions of that word. And so neurotypical is what we would, and some people still refer to as quote unquote normal. So neurotypical people whose brains function typically, they develop skills in an expected way, and that's how their brain organizes information. There are also those who are neurodivergent. Neurodiversity is that concept of that discusses the variety of the ways that humans process information and learn. And for some, that is different than the expected. And so it is neurodiverse. Their brains are diverse in how they process and experience the world and learn information. Some of the examples of neurodiversity, the neurodiversity minds, autism is one, ADHD, Down syndrome, OCD. These are examples of individuals whose brains operate a little bit differently than ours, not good or better or worse, just different. So throughout today, you'll hear us refer to the term neurodivergent, neurodiversity, and so that's what we are referring to. These are our people, and we love neurodiversity, Carlee and I, in our companies. So a little bit of history in special education. The federal law for special education was enacted 50 years ago. And so this year is the 50th anniversary. Originated in 1975, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. It was first a different name, and so now we all refer to it as IDEA. Hasn't been updated in about 20 years and is really due for an update. And I would say keep your ears to the ground to be listening to hear when some updates, significant updates are coming. Some minor updates have occurred over the years since 2004, but we do need some bit of an overhaul. So federal law does require that schools find and support students with disabilities, and that they do that at no cost to families. It is a free and appropriate public education. That is what students should receive, and they should receive it in the least restrictive environment. So those acronyms, FAPE and the LRE, this is a bit of the crux of what our federal law mandates, and this is also the crux of a lot of the issues that we see families experiencing. What is a free and appropriate, especially emphasis on appropriate education for one child compared to another? Is this goal, is this service, is this support truly appropriate for that child? Also, you might find issue with LRE. Is this the least restrictive environment for this child as compared to another? These are some of the things that we'll discuss, but I know that this is where we see sometimes a disconnect. Our federal law says that we must provide support for students from birth to 21. However, each state has interpreted that differently. They cannot offer less than the federal law, but they can offer more and adjust. So, for example, our company is based here in Southern California, and so the law says birth to 22 and a half, or 22, depending on their birthday. Some states have decided to offer it birth to 23 or 4. I think the state with the oldest age is 26, and it's a state with the M, and I always forget it. But services provided by the school district are mandated in a transition program for students who are post-high school, did not receive a diploma. They have a level of need where they're not able to get a diploma. So the school district must provide continued support through their transition age. And then out of the IDEA, the federal law, is where we get our IEP, Individualized Education Program. And each child has a program, and we'll talk a little bit more in the next slide. Just one second. So what is happening now? We know where we've come from, and we also know that there are some challenges. What are we experiencing when it comes to IDEA and IEPs? So approximately 15% of students in public schools receive a level of special education support. That could be an IEP, that could also include kind of monitoring to see if from the 504, which is a general education offering, that they might need an IEP. So they're somewhere in that beginnings of an IEP or having had one, about 15%. And that's pretty common across the board. There are some states that have higher percentages, but that's our average. The most common areas of need are specific learning disability, speech and language impairment, autism, and then OHI, other health impaired. That typically covers a variety of health-related conditions like ADHD or OCD or things of that nature. As specific to autism, we're now at 1 in 31 in identifying students somewhere by age 8 as to be somewhere on the spectrum. Again, this is all a continued growth that we've seen since IDEA was enacted 50 years ago, a growth in the amount of students that require support. So let's just again get that definition of IEP. So who requires and who should receive an IEP? An IEP is supposed to be provided to any child with a suspected disability. At minimum, they should be evaluated to see if they are eligible for an IEP. And so if you have a child who maybe has been doing okay, but they're beginning to struggle, or you're seeing some holes and not growth in their education, then you can ask for an evaluation for special education. And the federal law says at minimum, schools must give you that evaluation. Now, will they be eligible or not? That's what the evaluation should tell us. It shouldn't be someone's opinion. It shouldn't be anecdotal. It should be an evaluation that tells us if the child is eligible for that IEP. And who would be a part of that team and doing that assessment? Typically, it's a school psychologist, special ed teacher. The parent and child obviously are huge parts of that team. General education teachers, at least one, and then potentially related service providers. And that might mean a speech therapist, or occupational therapist, physical therapist, somebody of that nature. So these are the people who should be involved in that initial evaluation. And then also, if they are eligible, every 3 years, the child is reevaluated to see if they require the IEP. So what is this IEP? Well, it is an individual education program, as we shared. It's supposed to be designed so that all students with disabilities have access to that free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment. So it's a plan, it's a program. We put it together, we discuss it as a team, we agree on it, we sign. It's a process. So the IEP is a process. It is a document. It is legally binding. We are all in agreement when we sign it that we're going to do our part to see the child receive the education that they deserve. And therefore, if there are hiccups along the way, then we need to discuss that, because the parents and children with IEPs have legal rights that are tied to this IEP to ensure and help ensure, as to the greatest extent possible, what the law says, to ensure to the greatest extent possible that that IEP is being implemented with integrity. So when we're talking about that initial evaluation, or every 3 years, you should receive a response from the school district giving you some timelines within 15 days. So let's say you made a request initially and you want your child evaluated. The team has 15 calendar days to respond. And that is true if, let's say, you're halfway through the year and maybe your child has had an IEP, but you're realizing, wow, my child has never had speech at school. My child has speech in the public, privately. I'm thinking maybe we should have an evaluation. If there's any area of suspected disability at any time, you can contact the school and let them know we would like to have an evaluation in this area. And again, they should respond within 15 calendar days. Once you've signed that plan and returned it, the team now has 60 days to do all of the testing. And they should be evaluating the student by doing standardized tests. They should be observing the student. They should talk to you and do interviews. It should really be a holistic approach in doing this evaluation. They have 60 days to do that and then hold the meeting to discuss the results. Now, once you are in that meeting, once the results are ready, the IEP team may, unfortunately, tell you as the parent, okay, this is what we propose, and here's the IEP, and now we want you to sign it. I think that's unfortunate. And if I could change anything about federal law IDEA, I would add in that I wish it was not a requirement for parents to be asked to sign it immediately. Legally, there is not a requirement, let me be clear. But I wish it was something like a slap on the hand for teams that do that. They really push that on parents. The federal law doesn't say you have to sign it immediately, but teams often will push upon parents that you have to sign it. So there isn't a time frame, and I wish I could put that in the law that, you know, if teams push that on parents, they would get some kind of penalty, because I think this is a lot of information and there's a lot to digest, and it's unfair to ask for you to sign it immediately. But at some point you would sign, you could even sign with exception. And this is something that we see parents or sometimes encourage parents to do. You might agree with the goals. You might agree with the services, but maybe you don't agree with the service hours, or you might not agree with the eligibility category. You can sign with exception, and you can say, I agree to the IEP with the exception of ... And then that would keep you moving forward. At least the team can implement part of it while you're still working out those other areas. So just understand your rights and the flexibility you have in consenting or signing your child's IEP. And these meetings where this discussion happens should happen annually. Once the initial assessment, and then every year you're talking about progress, and then every 3 years the child is reevaluated. So this is that page, an example of a page of an IEP, and it is the consent page where it says, I agree to all parts of the IEP. And as I mentioned, you could say, I agree with the IEP with the exception of, I decline the offer if you disagree. You have options, and they're not always explicitly shared. So I just wanted to give you an example of what that could look like. There's also the question about your involvement. You can say yes, no, or no response. If you were not given the opportunity to participate in the IEP prior to coming to that meeting, because we know there are times, unfortunately, where teams they drop the information on you the day of the meeting, and you didn't really have a time to receive it ahead of time and digest. So that is up to you based on your situation. We're hoping for the best that you have a collaborative team, but just know that you do have those options. Okay, we're at who, what, when, and where. Where do IEP evaluations occur? So these evaluations, as I shared, should be really holistic. They should occur in a variety of environments in the school area. And so observing the child on the playground and in the classroom and at lunch and at PE, or if they're a middle or high school student, observing them in multiple classrooms. We know sometimes our students thrive in a certain classroom or area, and so they may not show areas of need if you just do one observation. So we always encourage multiple observations across multiple days and times of day so that you get a better picture of the child. And again, it should also include conversations with you, the parent, and standardized tests as well. The IEP meeting may occur virtually or in person once they're ready to share those results. And you must, as the parent, be made aware of it in enough time so that you can make yourself available. That's a part of the law. You have to be given reasonable notice so that you can make plans to attend at a mutually agreed upon time and place. So it shouldn't be that they call you or text you and say the meeting is in 2 days, right? Because that's not a reasonable amount of time for you to plan to make yourself available. So Ideally, you should receive a meeting notice, emailed, or a paper copy sent home with the child. And if reasonable, might be a week or 2 weeks or three, a month ahead of time so that you're prepared and you can make yourself available to attend. So why an IEP? Well, the purpose of our federal law really emphasizes these three things, that we're addressing a child's unique needs and preparing them for further education, employment, and independent living. So does the child have skills that they're missing in these areas? Academic skills, if there's a challenge there, is going to eventually could impact their further education. Maybe there's social skills, because it's not just always academics. You might have a child that is that anxious child who is unable to engage because of social emotional challenges. It could be that their social emotional status is impacting them, and that could impact their ability to get a job. That could impact their ability to live successfully independently or live with roommates, and so there are a variety of areas that may be impacted, but the goal of the IEP is to support them so that as they leave school, they are able to be more successful in further education, employment, and independent living. And why is the child found eligible for the IEP? They should be found eligible if they meet one of the categories, like we talked about: autism, specific learning disability, speech and language. There's 13 categories, 14 actually, but the 14th one, nobody ever uses that one. So typically, basically 13. So one of those categories, they're eligible, and then their needs are adversely impacting their educational performance. And so that goes back to the child that might be having success in some average, maybe even above average academically, but maybe they're struggling social emotionally. Maybe they're struggling to even get to school, school avoidance. Maybe they're struggling with peer interaction. Those areas count as well. Attendance, socialization, social emotional, behavioral, grades, all these factors is what the law has found are relevant when we're looking at, does the disability impact their educational performance? So that's what teams should be considering. So some tips around collaboration in the IEP process. This is really what we want to discuss in these last moments together. How can we make this a collaborative process? Understand as a parent, one thing is the language of the law. I've tried to give you some of that information so that you can use that language. But the law says free and appropriate public education. And so I would discourage you from using language like best. Yes, we want what's best for our children, but we need to understand what the implications and the expectations of the law, and that is that the education is free and appropriate. So you may choose to use that in your emails and in your conversations with school teams. Also, the word reasonable, that's been found in a more recent case in 2017. Does this IEP reasonably confer benefit to the child within the next 12 months? Is this reasonable? Is this appropriate? Understand the language of the law. That is what we've seen help to move things forward. More collaboration tips. Bring someone with you in your IEP meetings. Have someone as a part of your team. Again, we are all a team, but have someone that knows your child, because the law says anyone who has special knowledge about your child is able to attend a meeting with you. So it could be, if you're in California, your service coordinator from Regional Center. Maybe you have a therapist that knows your child, maybe a nanny or a sitter. Anyone with special knowledge can attend the meetings with you and provide some support. Another suggestion is requesting copies of the IEP documents ahead of time. This is something else I wish I could change. I wish it was mandatory that teams provide you with that information, but it is not. So ask. It never hurts to ask. Instead of the information being given to you day of, request copies of the IEP documents, and then ask questions and let the team carry the load. Instead of you're not doing, we encourage you to ask open-ended questions such as, speech therapist, can you explain to me what the sessions look like and how my child's going to make progress in 30 minutes a week of services versus 60 minutes a week or 90 minutes, which is what we're asking for? Can you help me understand how you're going to make progress and meaningful progress in 30 minutes? Wow, that's a powerful question. That puts the speech pathologist on the spot. And we've seen teams kind of, tuck their tails and run, for lack of a better word, and change things because they're not able to substantiate some of these questions and requests. So let the team carry the load. And while you're doing that, turn on your recording, because in many states, you have the right to record your IEP meeting. And at minimum, you can ask the team to document their responses in writing, either in the IEP notes or in a written document. So collaboration, we've seen in so many spaces, and one expert in this area, Greg Abel, he's an expert, he was an expert mediator. He's now passed away, but he discusses the idea of collaboration, respect, trust. This is where over his 20, 30 years, he saw the most student success. Establishing expectations when you're in IEP meetings. Maybe sending your team an agenda of the 3 or 4 things you want to make sure get addressed. These are things that you can do and you have access to as a parent. Tying your requests to specifics. Maybe if you're asking for, I'll stay on the vein of more speech because I'm a speech pathologist by trade. If you're asking for more speech and you hear the speech therapist say that the child, made more progress when they had, more support or something like that, then you say, oh, speech pathologist, it sounds as though you just shared that our child was performing better with more support. Could it be that an individual speech sessions would be more relevant for our child versus group? So tying your requests to things that have been shared by the team, it's kind of hard to deny that. And then lastly, the compliment sandwich. We use this in our company. You start off with, thank you for what you've tried to do, or something positive, right? This is the sandwich, that's the bread. And the meat is what we are wanting today and what we're seeing today is ... So the harder part, that uncomfortable part, goes in the middle, that's the meat. And then the other piece of bread is that positive thing. As much as this is what we're looking for, we believe that we're going to be able to make success and move forward in this area. And so that compliment sandwich of something positive, the harder part in the middle, and something positive on the end. That's a way you can consider phrasing some of the information you share with your IEP team. And here are some other examples of how to say things. For example, what would it look like if, I like to use this question. Maybe they're saying that your child should receive minimal inclusion time. You might ask, well, what would it look like if my child had twice as much inclusion time? Again, putting the load and the onus on the team to be able to justify why that's not a good idea. They probably won't have a good answer. And then that's something you need to be able to document. That might help move things in the right direction. Have you considered who will be responsible for? I'm a really big proponent of this. Sometimes we talk about a lot of things at IEP meetings and it sounds great. And then you leave the meeting, because I've been there, right? I worked 20 years in schools. You leave that meeting and then everybody thinks somebody else is going to do it. And the thing that we all talked about never gets done. So as a parent, you can ask, who will be responsible for taking my child to the restroom on these scheduled toileting breaks that we all just agreed on? That sounds wonderful. Who's going to do that? Or who's going to be responsible to write the social story for my child about the fire drill so they're not dysregulated the next time that happens? You see, and so asking and getting that in writing so that if it doesn't happen, we know exactly who to point to and there's some accountability. So these are some of the tips and ways to say the things that sometimes we need to say in IEP meetings. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you in the discussion of IEPs and how to help our neurodivergent students. And my contact information is here if you ever want to get in touch with me, but I know Carlee will share that information as well.
Yes, thank you, Crystal. As someone who got her master's in special education, IEPs is just, it's a very quick overview and kind of crash course. And I feel like a lot of us go into these meetings and there's tears and no understanding and what's next. And so I love the idea of open-ended questions and like ensuring that someone's doing the things that were said, because I feel like as an educator, that gets missed so many of the time. So I love your approach to a lot of these situations. So thank you. That was, even for me, I learned a lot during that. So I appreciate you sharing. And anyone on this call, I will share Crystal's information and mine after in an email. So please reach out with specific questions about your family. I know this is an overview, but we would love to get to know your family, your needs, and how we can help. Now, where I come in, I am with Apex Social Group. We do live-in developmental childcare. This was something I didn't even know existed or was even an option for families. So I'm sure you guys, similar, when you hear what I share with you, you're going to be like, wow, I didn't even know this could be something for my family. So, anyone out there that's just feels like they're running, I call it the hamster wheel, and not getting the support and routines and structure. We're only one person. So if a live-in qualified professional can truly help your family, I've seen it be a game changer. So who we are, we've been around since 2008. And we unlock children's greatest potential through integrating skilled care professionals and a cultural exchange experience into their daily life. So to kind of give you an overview, I feel like that's very wordy. We place live-in care professionals that have backgrounds in occupational therapy, physical therapy, special education, pediatric nursing, and go through a pretty intense matching process for families to get that live-in support that's qualified, that's compassionate, that's reliable, that a lot of the times families just kind of throw their hands up and like, we're just not able to find anyone that's qualified. We just went through our 8th, 10th babysitter. Like that should not be the standard in this space, because families deserve extra support and help. So we're truly that solution. I feel like I can talk about 700 different stories I've heard about through families from getting this care, but there's nothing like actually hearing from a family. So I am going to share this testimonial video from one of our families that talks about her experience.
My name is Amanda Sharp. I'm a board certified behavior analyst and in business development. He was born regular, no complications, and then around like 19, 20 months, we started recognizing global delays. And so after that, we had him tested in California. He was diagnosed with full autism spectrum disorder. I know it's scary. It was really scary.
So before we had any CPs in here, any help, it was just us. So there was me and my wife and our daughter, a 15-year-old daughter, trying to take care of a growing boy who requires 24/7 care.
Before I had a CP in my home, I was my son's caregiver and keeper and mother and manager all at the same time. I didn't really have a lot of freedoms to be a wife, have more professional time or experience working, and be a mother to my daughter.
It's been really nice having the CPs here. It's a lot easier, I want to say, for me to be like take a second and breathe. So having the CPs here has been more of a oh, I can step back and I can watch him grow as a person instead of just my little brother.
Mandy was able to find our care professionals through Apex, and they showed up, and things changed a lot. We're able to have freedoms that we previously just couldn't have.
Quality of life has increased in several different avenues. That starts from the small little things of being able to take a bath all the way up to I haven't been anywhere with my husband alone in 2.5 years.
So as care professionals with Hayden, we help him in his everyday life. For example, getting ready in the morning. We make sure that he eats his breakfast before he goes to therapy. For his lunch break, we make his food for him and we just spend time with him so that he can relax. And on the weekend, it's a little bit different, the routine, because he has no therapy. So we go outside with him a lot and play games, watch movies together. He has some schoolwork that we do with him. It's called Equipping Minds. And it's just a tool that we use for him to develop more like his school level. For example, he has some cubes and he puts the colored cubes on the colored arrows. It's good that we can use tools so that we have more of a connection with him too.
We make some schoolwork with him, and then it's lunchtime. After lunchtime, so yeah, he likes very much jumping on trampoline and swinging. So we're going to the goats or to the brown bench in the front.
I'm really part of the family, and we eat together every evening and we do things together. So I'm really thankful for that.
Anybody that uses Apex will not only get the help that they need, but they'll also kind of get the relief that knowing that, you know, somebody's there that actually cares and there's consistency and they will stick with you through the hardest times because they've already proven it.
Having care professionals from Apex are not just for, you know, your child. It's for your family, and that's, you know, that sense of well-being really is that's what you gain from it.
Hayden, are you happy? Are you happy with Micah and Celine? Okay, yes or no? Okay, we'll see you soon.
I love sharing that because I think it's really eye-opening. I think we all say, oh, we understand what families go through, but we truly don't. And so, you know, when parents call us and say, we haven't left our house in 6 years, like I said, that shouldn't be the standard for families. You know, mom and dad's quality of life is just as important as their child's. And if your bucket isn't full, you can't pour into theirs. So it's really amazing to see the dynamic shift once we place a live-in care professional. Like mom and dad are like, whoa, we can go to the grocery store, we can leave for a couple hours, we can do those things. And we're like, yes. And I think they're much more than just, you know, a live-in nanny. They become an extension of your family. So it's just really incredible to watch, like I said, that family dynamic. So what makes this different? I think there's a lot of different ways of what makes this different, but these are just some highlights. So areas of experience, the Apex Care professionals come from professions in child development or a therapeutic field. So we're not just bringing over, you know, someone that's a business major to come over here and just get to explore the US. These are people that we build relationships with while they're in school, understand their motivations, you know, understand what space they're in. We want people that want a long-term career in special education. So we only recruit those that are in occupational therapy, speech therapy, pediatric nursing, social workers, physical therapy, ABA, education and early childhood. Like I said, we're really particular. I would almost say too picky with who we bring onto our team, because we want to make sure it's really those compassionate, reliable, motivated individuals that have a want and a drive to work with kids and young adults with special needs. A couple additions to those standards: not only do they just have to have that background, they have to have a minimum of 400 hours of experience in childcare, a willingness to relocate and live with a family for 12 to 24 months. They have to complete our academy. So we kind of go through best practices, right? Not a lot of people have lived in a home with someone that's your employer and your place of living. So just kind of talk through, what does best practices look like during that time? They have to have references, educational and personal references that we check in a background check. And then we also make them, this is really unique, which I thought was really interesting when I joined the team at Apex. We make everyone on our team do a personality analysis, and it's like your rooted motivations of why you do the things you do. So there's no wrong answers, but if you have a family that really craves structure, you're not going to want to place them with a care professional that is kind of a free-flowing, free-going. I just kind of go with the flow. You want to make sure it's an all-around good fit, personality, experience, backgrounds, all the things. So we really do our best to ensure it's an all-around perfect match. So a couple things, we're located in pretty much all the major US cities, the metropolitan areas, and we're in certain cities and states for a reason. We understand that having a live-in, I think a lot of parents say, oh my gosh, this could never be something we could afford. But we really did some market research to make sure it was accessible. But then in the cities and states that we're in, we did a lot of research and have built partnerships that help us understand the Medicaid waivers, because there's going to be a form of a Medicaid waiver in every single state. Now, there's so many different, I've learned this from coming on the team, there's so many different rules and regulations when it comes to that. And so we've kind of helped families navigate that and getting a Medicaid waiver and how that can be applied to getting a live-in care professional. One of the best states for this is California. They have the self-determination program, and it's a pretty accessible program and funding that you get. And I've seen families essentially pay very little out of pocket to get a live-in care professional. So, if finances are a roadblock for families, we really help them navigate their Medicaid waiver and get that applied to a live-in care professional. And we've actually done a couple webinars. We've done one in California, we've done one in Northern Virginia. So we're still learning. There's some states we're very, very confident in. We're like, this is what it is. Let's connect you. Let's get this going. And then, there's some other states that just have put up some roadblocks for us, and we're still trying to navigate that. But one of the reasons why a partnership team and where I come in is so important is because we'll do anything and everything to get answers and try to get all these systems in place if a family truly needs this live-in support. So an Apex individualized care plan, I feel like this goes not necessarily hand in hand with an IEP, but it's another plan that's in place, because I think it's really important that people can say all these great things. You're going to see all these developmental milestones be reached when you get this live-in care provider, but how can we make sure we're really doing what we're saying, and how can we track that? And that's where this is going to come in. So we're actually going to sit down with, the entire care team. So if you have an OT, a PT, a speech therapist, I mean, there's so many different therapies that a kid can be getting, which is very important to their development. But how can we make sure that we are understanding the practices that we're doing and integrating that back into the home when they're not getting therapy? Because as much as, like Crystal said, a 30-minute speech session can be great. If you're not integrating what he or she is doing back at home, you're not going to really see a lot of progress be made. So that care professional is going to sit down, our team is going to sit down with the family and say, okay, what therapies are in place? Okay, can we connect to all these therapists and understand what are they working on? What can our care professional do to kind of mirror a lot of these practices back at home when they're not there? And we have seen, there was a family that said, our kid is never going to be able to dress themselves. It's just is what it is. And we're like, let's see. There are some cases where it's just never going to be feasible. But we worked with the entire therapy team, the OT, the PT, and this kid within, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 months, was able to dress themselves. Not all the way, all the time, but we were definitely getting there. So I think we really get in there and not only want to have consistent quality care, but we want to work as an entire team to reach these milestones together. obviously appropriate milestones that make sense to the child. So these are just developmental outcomes based on statistics. So we are going to actually, once we do that care plan, we're not just going to say, okay, we're going to reach all these things. We're going to check in monthly. How are things going? What are some different, we're going to meet with the therapist team again. What are some things you're seeing that they reach? What are some things we can work on? Okay, we reached this goal. What's another goal we can do? So we're really going to make sure we're tracking and, backing these outcomes based on statistics. So a little bit of our process and our team. So we're actually not a huge company. We only serve about 150 families nationwide, and our growth plan has never been to serve 1,000 families. We want to know, I'm sure based on what I've shared with you, we're a very intimate team. So we know every care professional by name. We know every family by name. If you ever call our main line and you say, this is blah, blah, blah family, we know exactly who you are. We know exactly how old your child is. And that's the way we want to keep it. Our inside team all comes from a background of special education in some aspects. So we're all very motivated to make a difference in this space. And that was a huge thing when I joined the team. If this is a company of 500 and we don't know who is who and what goals are being reached and can't be each other's cheerleaders, it just wasn't going to align. But that's definitely not the case. So we do have small teams that are dedicated to different specialties within a family. So we have a family advising and matching team, and they are going to be your people where you call the phone. They're going to want to get to know your family. So is live-in care the best fit for your family? We'll never push someone to have someone live in their house if they're on the fence about it, right? So what are the needs of your family? Does live-in make sense? Tell me more about your child's needs. What ideally would you like to see change when you do get a live-in? And then next steps, if you're like, yep, this all sounds great, you're going to get a matching team. And this is where I think it's pretty incredible what we do. So like I said, the matching team knows all the care professionals that are in matching looking to support a family. And then they get to know all the families that go into matching. So there have been times we've had 70 care professionals online, and we don't assume that a family going into matching is going to interview 70 care professionals, right? So we're going to say, hey, based on what you told me, based on your personality assessment, we really think these couple care professionals would be a good fit for what you're looking for. But you're still going to be the one that gets on a Zoom call, interviews them, asks them all the question, and is going to be the one that gives them the job offer. We're just really there to help and guide that process along with you. So after you find your care professional, they're placed in your home. We're still not done. If you haven't noticed, we're going to be there every step of the way. So you are going to get an APEX Care and Development Director that's local to where you are. So wherever we place a care professional in a family, we always have someone local. So they're going to come meet you in person. They're going to take the care professional out once a month. They're going to check in once a month. They're on call 24/7. Their main job is to support the care professionals and the families in their area 24/7. So it's just great to have that in-person connection, and also allows the care professional to be integrated within the community, and that doesn't have to fall on the family. And then you'll also have your educational and therapeutic resources team. So that's where I come in. I have built connections like with Crystal in all the cities and states that we're in. I have actually 200 partnerships. And so when families ask, hey, we just got a recent diagnosis, our pediatrician is recommending we get ABA, or we're looking into OT, or we really need an IEP advocate. I could name them off the top of my head and do an email introduction. And they're not just people I'm like, hey, I saw you online, I'm just going to refer to you. They're people I've set up a meeting, understood their approach and their care to families, and feel really confident in their values, their morals, and the care that they provide. So that was a very long process. I've been with Apex for 2 years, and those partnerships that I've created, I would hands down refer all day, every day. And it's, like I said, it's great because as much as we would love to be the solution to everything, we're just not. And that is it. I would like to end it with a quote from one of our families. The care professionals that Apex Social Group finds are of the highest caliber. We get the feeling that if the care professional is not good enough for Susan's family, who is our founder and CEO, then they are not good enough for any of her host families either. We love how her team helps handpick which of the candidates would match best with the host family. I know this is a jump, but if anyone is like, oh my gosh, I want to learn more, there's a QR code there. But like I said, I will send out an email after with my contact information, Crystal's contact information. There's also a recording. So if you want to go back and say, oh, can't remember what Crystal said about this step or about this, you'll have access to that. So yeah, we're really appreciative of everyone joining us, hopping on. I hope you took some really valuable information. I know firsthand from families how hard it can be to navigate a lot of services for your child. And, you know, even if you just wanted to hop on a call with me, and I'm sure with Crystal, and ask one question or ask 500 questions, you know, that's what we're here to do, is to help more families and not have it be such a scary, complex, feeling very alone system for you.